This is Robert Landau, Live Life Well TV host. We are here with another episode, actually, a very special episode of our weekly trivia program here on Live Life Well TV that we call Did You Know? It's special this episode because the last episode of Did You Know, episode 67, was special too. Why? Because it was the first in a continuing series of Did You Knows in which we tend to focus on Hollywood movie blockbusters. And this episode is no different. We're going to look at trivia that you might not have known before about a movie that you probably have seen before, maybe more than once. That great MGM musical spectacular, Easter Parade. Stay tuned. Before we get underway, we would like to acknowledge the following website, moviestvnetwork.com. So, have you seen the film Easter Parade? If you haven't, where have you been? Do take a look at it sometime. It is well worth a visit. And for those of you that have seen it, it certainly is well worth a revisit. But here are some things that you might not have known in the form of did you knows. Did you know that Arthur Freed wanted to make a musical using Irving Berlin's music and using a holiday that had been untapped up till then for the subject of a major motion picture, Easter? The Easter Parade was a real event in the early 20th century where New Yorkers walked around Fifth Avenue sporting their best. I don't think the Easter Parade is still going on, but I'm from New York City, and boy, I remember year after year after year when that was so much fun to watch and or be a part of. The film Easter Parade was shot in 10 weeks in order to be released in time for Easter. And did you know the movie's cast? If not, listen to these names: Judy Garland, Ann Miller, Fred Astaire, and Peter Lawford. So before we get further into it, here's a brief synopsis of the movie's plot. In a lavish musical, Broadway star Don Hughes, who's played by Fred Astaire, dancing partner Ann Miller, goes solo. So Don Hughes' dancing partner Ann Miller goes solo, and Don declares that he can make a hit performer out of the next dancer he happens to see. This turns out to be the inexperienced Hannah, who is played by the very experienced Judy Garland, who bristles as Don tries to make her into his old partner. But he realizes that he is falling in love with Hannah. Don knows that he must let her grow into her own kind of dancer if he wants her to reach her full potential. Did you know that Easter Parade was originally developed as a reunion movie for Judy Garland and Gene Kelly, who had charmed audiences together in a previous musical film by the name of The Pirate? However, the fickle finger of fate stepped in when Gene Kelly broke his ankle a week before shooting was to start on the Easter Parade, and Fred Astaire, who had retired from movie making already for 2 years, took over the role as a last-minute replacement. Oh my goodness, I can't imagine how frustrated Gene Kelly must have felt. But what can you do when you break your ankle? You can't dance, and you can't dance for a while. Did you know that an injury also kept Sid Charisse from taking the role that eventually went to Ann Miller? Unfortunately, Miller was also injured at the time, but decided to appear in Easter Parade, but she wore a back brace throughout the entire filming of that movie. She also made sure to wear ballet slippers so as not to be taller than Fred Astaire, because Ann Miller was tall. Did you know that in the first scene that Judy Garland had to shoot with Fred Astaire, it happened to include a kiss? Garland was just a little nervous because she had never even met Fred Astaire before the filming of that scene. Judy later said, "He put me completely at ease. He is a gentleman and he happens to be a lot of fun to work with." I certainly don't doubt that in the slightest. Did you know that Judy Garland inspired a song? While posing for photographs with the musical composer of Easter Parade, Irving Berlin, Judy actually said that perhaps her cheeky pictures might just inspire a song. And you know what? They did. Berlin gave Garland a small slip of paper that had the wording, "It only happens when I dance with you," which became the film's love song. Who knew? Did you know that Judy Garland's husband, Vincent Minnelli, the famous movie director, was originally slated to direct, but Judy's psychiatrist advised the two not to work together because of the issues, personal and professional, that they had encountered during the filming of a previous picture they worked on together, The Pirate. Did you know that the original title song for Easter Parade was called "Smile and Show Your Dimple"? Thank God that never made it to the movie. Did you also know, and you probably did know this, that the very famous daughter of Judy Garland and director Vincent Minnelli is Liza Minnelli? Did you know that the shedding feathered gown that is worn by Judy Garland in the film when she dances with Fred Astaire in one number is an inside joke reference to Ginger Rogers' problematic gown dancing with Fred Astaire in the movie Top Hat? She, Ginger, wore a gown that eventually became known as problematic. Why? Because an ostrich feather broke loose from Ginger's elaborate gown and stubbornly floated in midair around Fred Astaire's face. So the gown that Judy Garland wore in one particular number, where in Easter Parade she was dancing with Fred Astaire, was a tribute to Ginger's gown with the floating ostrich feathers. So there you go. Did you know that the song Easter Parade that the movie was based upon was first sung in Irving Berlin's 1933 Broadway review by the name of As Thousands Cheer? It was written by Marilyn Miller and Clifton Webb and was inspired by the annual event in New York City, Easter Parade. The song also appeared in the Irving Berlin movie Holiday Inn. So Easter Parade, the song, has had quite a good run. Did you know that upon its release, Easter Parade was both a critical and a commercial success? That's not always the thing. Sometimes that can be a very rare thing indeed. Did you know that Easter Parade happened to have been, to that end, MGM's highest grossing film of the all of 1948? Did you know that Easter Parade was the second highest grossing MGM musical of the 1940s after the hit film Meet Me in St. Louis? Did you know that Fred Astaire was 49 years old in real life at the time of the film's release? And did you know that Judy Garland was 26 years old at the time of the release of Easter Parade? Did you know that the story is set between the Easter Sundays of 1911 and 1912, which was just prior to the beginning of World War I in 1914? The film was actually produced in 1948, just 3 years after the end of World War II. Did you know that Easter Parade won the 1948 Academy Award for Best Original Music Score? Did you know that one musical number in the film, a seductive performance of something called Mr. Monotony, by Garland wearing a tuxedo jacket, black fedora, and black nylons, a style of dress which would become something of a trademark in later years for Judy after she wore the same outfit in her film Summer Stock? Well, Mr. Monotony in Easter Parade was cut from that film after it was deemed too risque for a film supposedly set in 1912, which actually, if you think about it, makes a lot of sense. Audiences finally got to see it in the 1990s when an edited version of that number was included in the 1994 compilation. My goodness, I better be careful what I say here. I'm going to get censored myself. But that footage, Mr. Monotony, somewhat edited, was included in the 1994 compilation documentary film, That's Entertainment 3. And finally, did you know that Frank Sinatra was originally cast in Easter Parade as Jonathan Harrow III? Who got the part instead of Frank? Peter Lawford. So there, my friends, you have it. Ladies, does this make you want to put an Easter bonnet on and parade down Fifth Avenue? Well, maybe not, but at least you know a lot more about the magical film Easter Parade than what you knew before we started. And for that, I would like to thank you for tuning in. This has been Robert Landau, Live Life Well TV host, with another episode of Did You Know? Join us next week for another episode that will honor a major motion picture. Thanks for tuning in.